That neatly leads us into our last session, Open to Leap Ahead, where we're taking a long, hard look at the hows and the whys, the practicalities and the problems of researchers and research institutions taking their results beyond scientific publications and conferences and into the sometimes alien worlds of knowledge transfer and commerce, attracting investment and creating successful startups. While Portugal and Spain have a deserved global reputation for research, I'm going to slightly generalize and say they've less of a name for tech transfer and turning those findings and theories into things that make people's lives better and or make a profit. For some researchers, it's just not on their radar. So is this something we need to leave only to those individuals who are already somehow infused with an entrepreneurial spirit? Or do we need to nurture it across research and develop strategies that stimulate innovation and normalize making the most of breakthroughs? How do we get better at making the best of our work? Now, we're not going to have any formal presentations in this session. Instead, we've got a three-person expert panel, each of whom I'll get to introduce themselves and say a bit about their experiences and why they've been invited to be part of this discussion, apart from the fact that they've got a current involvement with CaixaResearch projects. But we've also got a lot of people in the room with spin-off, startup and translation experience. So we've corralled some of them to be a kind of supercharged front row here. And I'm hoping they'll be chipping in too at various points. But as ever, we want to hear from everybody in the room. All our panel and several of our front row and a few of you out there wear at least two hats, the hat of their institution and the hat of innovation. And I'm hoping by the end of the session, as well as having heard from everybody who's got something to say, there'll be a few people who are thinking of getting a new hat. I'm going to begin with Bruno Silva-Santos. Now, like I said, I'm largely going to leave our speakers to introduce themselves. So suffice to say, Bruno is Vice Director of IMM, the Institute of Molecular Medicine in Lisbon, as well as a full professor in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Lisbon. 10 years ago, Bruno co-founded IMM's spin-off company, Lymfact, and that 5 years ago was acquired by Gamma Delta Therapeutics in the UK, and which in turn, just last year, was incorporated into one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, Takeda. So what set him on this entrepreneurial path? What's his advice for those following him? Your applause, please, for Bruno Silva-Santos.
Thank you very much. I actually thought we would all sit down and then chat. So I have to stand up and do a TED talk.
And then we'll sit down and chat.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So 12 years ago, I had a PhD student that stumbled on something unexpected, and suddenly we had a phenotype of a cell type that had not been described, and we realized that this phenotype was very potent to eliminate tumor cells. So we had a very rare population in the blood that we thought was particularly attractive to develop as an adaptive cellular therapy for cancer. The problem was there were no reported means to expand these cells, and because they were particularly rare, this was a huge challenge ahead of Daniel, this PhD student. But he managed. It took 2 years, and he tested 2,500 conditions, and we got to this kind of miracle recipe that we patented, of course. So the first challenge, because I had never been an entrepreneur or an innovator before that, was that Daniel prevented me from publishing the paper I had just written before we patented it. So he convinced me to keep it in the drawer, and then we did do the patent, which saves our lives and our technology. And so from then on, Daniel, as you'll see, I'm mentioning Daniel as the real guy behind the story, because he then decided to take almost a year off and do an entrepreneurship course in order to start a company to develop this technology. So whereas I was in the comfort of my seat, teaching and supervising a lab, he took a loan to be able to do 6-month course, and basically came back after having met people that would help him along the way, and basically getting a potential CEO for the company to convince me to, together with the two of them, to found Lymfact. And so we did that in 2013, and for 5 years we are funded by Portuguese money to develop and get all the proof of concept to make our company attractive enough either to be bought, or ideally we were romantic enough that we thought we would get money and constant investment to run ourselves the phase 1 clinical trial, so a researcher-driven phase 1 clinical trial, and then we would like to sell the company eventually to a pharma company that could do a phase 2 and so forth. The reality of it is that Portugal was, and still is, very weak in investment for companies. And so our Portuguese investors did not have the muscle required to foster the development of the company beyond the 5 years. And it was exactly when we celebrated our 5th anniversary that we were bought by a British company, Gamma Delta Therapeutics. So I spent 2 years of my life before this acquisition going around Basel, Boston, Paris, you name it, looking for foreign investment. And there I did feel, and I think it's important in an Iberian context, I did feel that there was some sort of looking down on a technology that was coming from a country like Portugal. And the proof, the ultimate proof of this, was the technology I was developing was paralleled by another technology in the UK. And because it was UK-based, that UK company got a lot of funds to develop their technology. They were the ones that bought our technology, and it was our technology that drove the British company to be acquired by Takeda 4 years later. And so this is the story that I think applies to Iberian research. Portugal definitely, of course Spain is slightly bigger and slightly more reputed internationally, but I think this set up a lot of challenges that we were able to overcome by a lot of work, a lot of effort from both myself in the end, because those 2 years I was the face of the company. It was only me that the big guys wanted to hear about the technology, and finally the British company acquired us, and then Takeda, and so now we are in clinical trials in the United States, and let's hope for the best. And so this is my personal view. Do you want me to describe my hat as Vice Director of IMM already?
Brief hat description.
Brief hat. Okay, so what we learned along the way, because when I started this at IMM, there was no support for researchers to start up a company. So, as I told you, I founded the LinkFact 2013. I became vice director in 2014. And together with María A, who's the executive director, we realized that what was happening to LinkFact should not happen to any other spin-off of the Institute in the future. So the big change, and really a breakthrough for the Institute, was to recruit a guy called Pedro Silva, who heads our technology transfer office, and that revolutionized the way we do tech transfer at IMM. So since Pedro arrived, we have founded now 5 spin-off companies. We have established over 300 contracts with pharma industry. We've licensed 50% of our patents. And yeah, I mean, the achievements are incredible. And this is all the merit of Pedro, having the right person with the right view, knowing everyone in the Institute, knowing what they're doing in basic science, and finding the avenues to translate that knowledge. And besides establishing all these partnerships and fostering creation of companies, one thing IMM has done recently was to establish a so-called co-lab, which is really getting together different institutions in Portugal, the técnicos, really the engineering faculty in Portugal, Universidade de Coimbra and so forth, to have a big consortium of incubation of very early stage ideas. So you actually are producing the proof of concept already within this co-lab, not in your lab, but in a structure where you can recruit postdocs to work for the co-lab. There are labs dedicated in Coimbra to develop those ideas. And so we are trying to really foster early stage discoveries to go along this path. And I think that's enough for now, right?
I will save most of the questions for later, but a couple I've got to ask. Sure. Have you ever thought, if the nature of Daniel, your PhD student, was a bit different, if he was a bit less entrepreneurial, would any of this have happened? Would you have just published a paper and...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is all... I mean, I think I made it obvious that I owe everything to Daniel in this regard, because he was the visionary. I was not. I did not see the potential. I have to say it myself. Because he was working with these cells every day, he was doing the assays, he was getting impressed to a level that obviously, I was just looking at everyone's data and saying, where am I going to publish this, right? And he really realized, and he saw the potential, and he persevered. My only merit was to support him along the way as much as I could. So I never said no. I was always there. And once traveling was involved, I was doing all the traveling, so he could stay in the lab doing the experiments.
And one brief question, just tell us a tiny bit about the current CaixaResearch project you're involved with, which I think also involves somebody on our front row.
Yes, Pablo. Yeah, so this was very important because one thing, our cell therapy is unmanipulated, non-engineered cells. And Pablo is an expert in engineering cells with cutting-edge technology called chimeric antigen receptors. So the idea was to combine this technology with our cells and show their potential as a combination cell therapy, and it worked extremely well, and so well that now many people are trying to copy our basic data and make it into a product with proprietary technology, which in this case we did not have. We did not have a car that we could make commercial. So that was unfortunate from our side, but it's still the basic science that was produced is inspiring further translation.
Brilliant. Lots more I want to pick up on, probably you want to pick up on. We're going to go to our second speaker first. Going to turn to María Blasco, Director of CNIO, the National Cancer Research Centre in Madrid, who I'm particularly delighted to welcome because she had a very tight train connection and only arrived after the session had started, so we weren't entirely sure she was here. María describes herself as a molecular biologist devoted to the study of telomeres and telomerase, and that devotion, plus a few other things, led her to found spin-offs Lifelength in 2010 and Telomere Therapeutics in 2020. Lifelength, Telomere Therapeutics, she obviously likes a little alliteration, both of which target telomeres for different things, aging and pulmonary fibrosis respectively, as does her La Caixa project, which is seeking new ways to combat cancers. So with some of the details of that and some of the experience she's had along the way, please welcome María Blasco.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the introduction. So I am a molecular biologist, as it was described, and I did my postdoc in the US in a place called Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, and I saw there that the PIs there funded companies. Some of them became millionaires, had planes and everything, and I thought, well, I will never have a company in Spain. I thought that was something that would never happen to me or would never happen in Spain. But when I came to Spain, I was lucky. There was a program, which I think it was a very successful program. It doesn't exist anymore, that was done by Fundación Botín. And basically, I didn't have to make any effort. There was a person coming to talk with me every month, and this person was looking at my data and sort of teaching me, and really, I was learning from this person how to translate what I was doing to potential applications. So, and that's how we came up Lifelength, and then when I became the director of the CNIO, because I'm also the director of the CNIO, I thought we have to have that here. So we established an innovation office. There was no innovation office at the CNIO, and it's a very big center with more than 600 scientists. And we established that, and the CNIO now, I would say that every researcher there, in a very natural way, they not only want to publish papers in Nature or Science, they also want to translate what they do. And we have many agreements with pharmaceutical companies. In Spain, there are almost no pharmaceutical companies, maybe one exception, that do drug discovery for cancer. But we have agreement with the big pharma companies. So, and we had agreement with all of them, Lilly, Roche, etc. And I think the CNIO received in the last 10 years almost 36 million euros that go to the groups to co-develop projects with these big pharma or smaller pharma companies. We have also a drug discovery program with medicinal chemists that are able to find molecules and develop molecules to a point where we can sell them to big pharma. We have sold to Merck, we have sold also to small companies. And we have spin-offs of the CNIO as well. And I think it's in our culture, the fact that we not only have to, of course, the most important thing we have to do is to make discoveries and things that matter and potentially could change the way we treat disease, and in particular we treat cancer. But we are also very motivated, I include myself, in doing this step forward and doing innovation. One thing that I think has also been very much appreciated by our scientists is that we have an agreement with Instituto de Medicina Molecular. It's a business school in Madrid. It's very prestigious and among the top 10 in the world. And every year we select from 3 to 4 students, postdocs, or even people from the administration of the CNIO to do a master in business administration at the Instituto de Empresa, and more than 50 people from the CNIO have done this, and they are now directing technology transfer offices, or they have moved to the industry, and I think that's very good. So I would say innovation is in our culture, is in my culture, and that's what I wanted to say. Do I sit?
Have a seat, thank you.
Okay. Where?
I think you can go in the middle, but you can go
Okay.
wherever you're comfortable, really. And just very briefly, what I mentioned about your CaixaResearch project, what's the state of play with that?
Yes, I have. Actually, I had several. I also had a Caixa Impulse, which was very important because both life length and telomere therapeutics are more oriented to the role of telomeres on aging. But in my group, we're also doing quite a lot of work in trying to target telomeres in cancer cells, and I had a Caixa Impulse project with one of these molecules that we found that was able to disrupt telomere function, and that is still going on. And this helped us then to interact with other companies. We have been interacting with other companies, and that's something I hope in the future maybe we'll have a spin-off company with compounds that will target telomeres, because this is something that has not been targeted yet in cancer, and I think there is a lot of promise. And then I had a bigger basic research program with La Caixa that also has to do with cancer, and in particular with exploring the role of a number of proteins that are bound to the telomeres, which are called shelterings, as targets for cancer.
Called what?
Shelterings. From shelter, from
okay.
Shield, I don't know, from protection.
That's my new word for the
I
day.
didn't invent the word. The word was invented by Titia de Langa, who is a researcher in the telomere field.
Okay, thank you. Again, there'll be lots more to go back to that. And going back to the thing that Maria said right at the start about millionaires, I think we can safely say that the brains in Spain don't get a plane.
That is true.
Portugal is harder to rhyme with. Right, okay. Final member of our threesome is Luis Serrano, who is a world leader in systems and synthetic biology and what you might call a serial entrepreneur. As well as being director of CRG, the Centro for Genomic Regulation in Barcelona, he helped create one of the very first Spanish biotech companies, Diva Drugs. I should have checked the pronunciation, maybe it's Diva Drugs, I don't know. In 1999, he's been founder or co-founder of many since, Cellzome and Vivo, Triscal, Pulmobiotics, Orikine, and probably a couple more I've not mentioned. How has he done it? Why has he done it? And what was it like trying to start a startup almost before startups had even started? Over to Luis Serrano.
Thank you. I mean, as Bruno said, I was not psychologically prepared for this. I was expecting to sit comfortably there and say something. Anyway, so I try to summarize a little bit my story. I did my PhD in Cambridge, and at that time I didn't have any idea about technology transfer, and then I moved to MBL. And it was at the time that Leonard Philipson was leaving. In fact, he left 1 year after I came there, and we got a new director that was Fotis Kafatos. He was a Greek scientist in Harvard. And when he came to MBL, he introduced the concept of technology transfer. That because MBL at the time was doing excellent science, but technology transfer was not in the radar. And it was a coincidence, the arrival of Fotis also, with suddenly Germany, that didn't have any tradition in startups, they created the BioRegio program to really start pushing for the development of startups. And the BioRegio was a kind of contest between all the German landers, and the one that won, for every euro that a company invested, the local and central government was putting another euro. And this gave an amazing push for a startup in Germany. Anyway, Fotis decided to create technology transfer, and for whatever reason, he talked to me, and I organized the technology transfer office and also created the venture capital fund of MBL called Emblem, which is the one behind all the technology transfer activities. And this is how I started to enter into this world of technology transfer. Now, Fotis also invited some American investors from, I think it was 3i, the venture capital fund, that they came and they had seminars and presentations of all MBL scientists trying to identify, in this case it was top-down and not bottom-up. And it was the beginning how, with research of which group could be interesting to develop. I still remember a meeting with Stelios Papadopoulos that we were presenting, and the guy was looking at a kind of book, and when I asked him about this book, he was buying sculptures of €1 million each one or something like this. So suggested that perhaps it was economically interesting, this technology transfer business. So at this time, we appreciated that, and I think we identified, or we realized very early that it was compatible to do curiosity-driving science and at the same time looking for an application of what you were doing. And I think this is a major thing that still has not been solved. Still in the mind of some scientists, they think that translating what you are doing is kind of corruption, which I think is a big mistake. I think you can do both things without any problem. And then we created Diver Drugs. We made this with some Spanish scientists. Later it was bought by Lipotec, but as you say, one of the first startup companies in Spain. We created En Vivo that had nothing to do with what we were doing. It was with Cayetano González. We had the idea of developing a robot that was taking tubes with flies, releasing them, and then we had an American and Spanish guy in the States that had Alzheimer's model of the flies. So the idea, the flies were going to the bottom, and then the robot was taking them up, and then a camera filmed them and looked at how they climbed. And the idea is that in the food they had drugs, and then the Alzheimer's flies, they couldn't go up, and if they found the right drug, they were climbing up. And this was bought later by Johnson & Johnson. Then we developed Triskel for cancer that, unfortunately, when a pharma company was going to buy it, they changed the director, and then the guy changed his mind, and the company failed. That's life. Mm-hmm. And we created also Cellsome, that has been one of the big successes of MBL, that was bought by GSK. I don't remember if there was another one. And then I came to Spain, and I remember when I became director of CRG, there was, in technology transfer, when I arrived to CRG, there was one person. And then as vice director, I started working with this person, that was Silvia Tortola, and when I became director, I decided to really push for technology transfer, and I remember a famous CRG British scientist, and paraphrasing a famous Spanish writer whose name I don't want to remember, who said explicitly, "You are wasting your time, Luis. In Spain, technology transfer will not succeed. Only in the UK," something like this. Anyway, against the majority of the people, because at that time it was very badly seen, we could hire more people, and I committed resources, like 200 euros, 1,000 euros per year, to give to the technology transfer people to do what they want. And slowly we started growing, and now CRG has created 7 startups, 1 per year, raised more than 50 million in seed funding, created more than 50 jobs, and recently we sold part of the shares in our company, and the institute got 4 million, and we only sold part of them, no? No, that's another problem. We don't enter into this. This is politics. But I think the critical point is that no one will say that CRG is an applied research institute. We still continue doing curiosity-driven science. And I think this is, for me, what is important. And I think the mentality is changing. Still, for example, now introducing the evaluation of the groups. They are evaluated by their science, but they are also evaluated by contribution to other activities of the institute, and the main one is technology transfer, not for the junior PIs, but for the senior ones. But still some seniors say, how I'm going to be evaluated by this if I'm really excellent doing basic science? And I say, fine. I'm not asking you to do patents or companies, but at least help or have the mindset of helping technology transfer. And still this is a battle to be fought. And we need to win it and convince people that they are not prostituting themselves, that they can do excellent science and contribute to society. Not only economically, but if you do something, and as Bruno is saying, that at the end you go to phase 3 and save the lives of people, I think this is quite rewarding, no, in this respect. And that's it.
Thank you.
Well, sorry, I forgot to say, and at CRG, I created 2 startups recently, and as Bruno said, I managed to create them because the 2 female postdocs in my lab, each one of them became the CSO of the companies and push for it. And I think this is very important, the young people.
Yep. And one of those startups, Pulma Biotics, is involved, that's related to your CaixaResearch
Both
project.
of them.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, my research is in cells and synthetic biology combined with protein design. So Pulma Biotics is a company, in fact, that we created also with the support of a grant from La Caixa. And we are engineering a bacteria to treat human lung diseases. In this case, it was infectious, although now the company, like, when you create a startup, it's like a child. At the beginning, they love you, and after a while, they go in a different way, and you need to cope with it. I mean, this is life, no? And the second one is Orikine. Orikine is engineered cytokines. And this was an idea that the problem with the bacteria we are using is that it doesn't express too much protein in the lung. So then to have a physiological response, we needed to improve the proteins to make them more active. So with little protein, you will have a physiological response. And for this, we use proteins design software we developed in the group. And one of the molecules we designed was a cytokine. And from then came the second company based on improved cytokines.
Thank you. There was a lot of things you said that I think we might want to circle back to, not least mindsets, not least prostituting themselves as a phrase. But we'll come back to that later. But first, I want to kick things off by just seeing about reactions from our front row about relevant experiences. I'm going to pick on you unless you volunteer yourself. So who would like to go speak first? I think, Xavier, you look like you had a hand up. I think you've got your...
But I can speak it.
Okay. Shall we pass you a microphone?
No, I wanted to emphasize that 2 out of the 3 speakers have mentioned how important it was to have members in the lab that really had the drive to, transform their research projects into ventures. And I think that's an area where it would be great to have further support from the Caixa Foundation or other institutions. Because, of course, if they are in your lab, you've got the money to pay for them to do experiments and to, push the projects to get papers out. And the fact that they have to devote so much of their energy to these entrepreneurial projects sometimes causes some tensions. So having support specifically for that and also for the training, I think would be very helpful.
I mean, this is one of those chicken and egg things. You can get that by selection process, but even better is if you've got people who are more researchers who are thinking that way to start with.
The Caixa Impulse program is very useful for that. It provides the training and, a little bit of money. But I think to having, some sort of personal grants in the same way that La Caixa has leadership, junior leader grants, it would be good to have similar grants for entrepreneurial scientists in institutes and universities. That's one possibility. And
just a little bit by way of introduction, since we're throwing everybody here without telling who the audience is, and we also realise you're not even facing the audience. I should say you're from IRB Barcelona Institute for Research in Biomedicine, and you're founder of Nuage Therapeutics, or is it New Age? I quite like the play on words.
Nuage.
Yes, it works both ways. Carmen.
Okay, I fully agree with the things that have been discussing here, because I think that really the support of your organization is key to advance the project as we are doing in the lab. But also I would like to emphasize also the last point that is regarding our colleagues, because sometimes you have to go against your colleagues because they are supposed to do excellent science, and really excellent science is, I think that is the way to obtain also some result that can be translated, but they are not one against the other. and sometimes in our places, there are 2 groups, the groups that are doing technology transfer and the others that are doing excellent science. And I think just the communication
Those
between
should not
both.
be exclusive categories.
Yeah, this is the point, yeah.
Okay, Carmen from CSIC, Spanish National Research Council. And Ronit, you wanted to say something, Ronit? So this is Ronit Sachi Finaro, Tel Aviv University. I think you've got 60 patents and 3 spin-off companies.
Thank you. I think that there are 2 tipping points, or maybe melting points in our case of our careers. We are trained for 10, 15 years to be scientists, solely scientists. And then we get to the stage that we open our independent labs, and we find out that we have to be sort of a CEO of a small company to get the funding, to be a psychologist, to be an architect of the lab. There are multiple jobs that we were not trained for. So one step is at that point that you realize is maybe to prepare better our postdocs that want to go to an academic career or even to go to industry is to prepare them better, that there is more than just the science around.
So this should be built in, not bolt on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the second stage is the stage that we are speaking here, when you realize that I cured enough mice from cancer, and when you get to the 10,000 mouse that you cure, you think, okay, what about translating it to humans? And for that, you need a platform, and you need to realize that either you go with licensing your whatever you did or created in the lab to another company because you decide that you're not built for this move, or go to a spin-off. And at that point, we also need some guidance because we are not prepared for that. And I think there are so many things that we can do to prepare better, to talk to VCs, for example. At the beginning, when I was talking to VCs, I felt the urgent need to shower after every discussion with them. And then you realize that you have to learn how to explain your science in an easier and less complicated manner, and other skills and traits that you don't know when you're just used to standing in front of scientists that know exactly that are in your niche and exactly understand.
It's a huge cultural difference, isn't it? And what is acceptable behavior in one culture is completely weird in another.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll keep moving along. So we have María A, who you saw speak yesterday in the new therapies session, but we didn't mention back then, co-inventor of 14 patents, 4 licensed to the pharmaceutical industry, and I think one used as the basis for the creation of the spin-off Polypeptide Therapeutic Solutions, which currently has, I think, 80 plus employees?
Yeah, the company was acquired by an American venture capital in 2021. So they're growing, they are expanding now. But just to add to what we discussed, I very much agree with many things. But when you arrive to this setup that you are doing something, you really want to transfer. I think the policies, as Luis was mentioning, in the institutions are really, really important because you need the support there. Apart from training our minds that this excellent science is not discussing with the transfer. I heard many times of me because I've been also I had very much friends of mine that aren't as entrepreneurs, but I didn't know how to do it, and I was pushed to do. But sometimes you face like, Maria, you have many hats, so you need to put only one and publish a Nature. That is one you're going to be evaluated for. So that's why my science is not a Nature. My science is a whole of things, and all the hats are needed to have something that I want to do. So the science policy, the way we are evaluating ourselves as a scientist from many institutions that we are getting the funding from really from the beginning, because at the beginning it's more harder than when you are already established, that you have more tools, so you know how to squeeze them, no? So I think it's really, really important, and I think having directors that has very clear ideas, like Luis or Bruno or Maria, pushing this tech transfer office, giving importance to tech transfer, giving the same level, having a high impact factor journal that having one patent, and that's really, really important to push in Spain and Portugal this option, because this was not clear in the starting of the 2000s. So that I found this because I was the first spin-off in my institute, for example, and I had to fight a lot just to arrive to an agreement with them because I wanted to set up one, and it was difficult to learn how to do it. So I think that's important.
Maria has nicely brought us back to the hat metaphor we started with, and I wanted to ask our 3 experts, because I'd imagine pretty much everybody in this audience is aware of your reputation as researchers and as directors of institutes, but there will be lots of people here who don't know about your entrepreneurial side. And is that because you tend to be either wearing one hat or the other, because we tend to only wear one hat at a time, but actually we need to kind of ditch the hat metaphor and be quite happy when you're in your roles of directors to actually proudly talk about your entrepreneurial role as well? Bruno?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, picking up on this issue, I was just discussing with Leonor, that is in my institute as well, that I was proposing that in evaluations you should have, I mean, you could select your 5 biggest achievements, and those can come from papers, from translation, because of what we just heard about people that are great at science communication, dedicate a lot of their time. It's really how you perceive the main achievements of your scientific career as a whole, and not as departments where you have to specialize and wear therefore more one hat than the other. So yeah, I'm with you that we should see ourselves as a unique combination of these different perspectives. And some of us can be 80% basic, 20 tech transfer, vice versa. I mean, it doesn't matter, whatever. I mean, it should be driven by the interest that the person naturally has, but then the person should really build on those interests and should be recognized by the institution. So I think there are two main messages that were strengthened, and I would go back to them. One is this, evaluation being valued within the institution for this, and the other one is to provide training for those people within our teams that can make a difference. So my Daniel, he has to do it all on his own. He had to ask for a bank loan because the institution did not have the means to support him during 6 months of a course of internship, entrepreneurship that would be instrumental to start a company.
So this wasn't a question of them not support, they just did not have the mechanisms.
Exactly. I mean, he had a postdoc fellowship. Yeah. He was meant to do a basic science project. He wanted to go in a full-time every day. So, for instance, Caixa Impulse as a project, as a program, can allow you, for instance, if you're in Portugal, to do this course, come to Barcelona sometimes, but you cannot do it full-time at this moment. And there should be a program that you could do it as a full-time because you're really prioritizing on that sort of career. And for that, you need dedicated means of funding, and the institution must really recognize them and encourage them.
Maria, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I wanted to mention regarding basic research or applied research at the CNIO is very clear. So the program that is the most basic program, the one oriented to discovery, which is called molecular oncology, is the one with more patents, with more spin-off companies, with more money that comes to the CNIO through agreements. So it's not whether the research you are doing is more or less applied when you are doing it. Is the discovery, is the breakthrough research, the one that is associated with innovation. That's very clear, it's obvious at the CNIO. So it's very clear that the patents, the opportunities with companies will come from the top research, always. There is no exception. Regarding the CNIO, what we do, regarding what you said, is we have this agreement with the Instituto de Empresa, i.e. it's really a top business school. So we offer people at the CNIO to be able to do a course in business administration. And I think this is very helpful for the people that wants to change careers and maybe move to the industry, to the technology.
Which is coming back to Xavier's point about getting people into that loop where they've got those levels and not having this all added on. Now, I appreciate there's still a couple of members of our front row we haven't heard from yet, so I'm going to go next to Frederick, and I'm reluctant to try and pronounce Frederick's surname, but Bartumius? Yeah. That's close enough, that's good, thank you very much indeed. Now, he's from the Institute of Research for Biomedicine in Barcelona, and I think you've got an involvement in citizen science as well, yeah?
Yes, I'm a bit out of the scheme here in the sense that we are developing a citizen-based early warning system related to mosquito-borne diseases, and that's a tool, an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure. But it doesn't follow the pathways, the usual pathways of health research, in the sense that there's no private companies interested in this tool, or putting private companies in this tool would be something counterproductive, because you're working with citizens and everything we are doing is open science. So it's this new model of innovation, which is called open innovation. For public.
This is also what's sometimes called translation without spin-off as well.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. I mean, we are in this terrain, which is a strange terrain, where we are much beyond the research component of the thing, where our clients are public health administrations, could be Ministry of Health, a public health agency with scarce funding, but they are interested in the tool, but there's no such a motivation to put money on that, but they are using the tool. So we are in this situation, and I would like to know from your experiences, because it's pretty much similar. We are building up a team. There's people, we're trying to get funding out of the research funding to keep the infrastructure, to maintain the infrastructure. So we are having all these issues about, building up a spin-off without having investors on that, right? So I don't know, I'm just putting this, but this is something new. It's coming a lot, these open innovation ideas, where you cannot do patents, where that's not the story. So the business model should be another one, and we're trying to figure out if anybody here knows anything about it. I'll be happy to
Anyone offering help, Luis?
Yeah, I mean, For example, and what you're saying is something interesting. One of the companies that have been more successful at CRG, that has raised more money so far, and the one that we sold 60% of our shares is Sequera. Sequera is based on open software. It's not protected, it's not patented, and has been one of the most successful we created. So there is not necessarily an incompatibility between open science and keeping your data open or protecting. I think in some cases, of course, you will need to protect. I think it's very important that the institutes, when they sign an agreement to develop a patent or a company, we put a rule saying this will be hidden for X number of months, and then it will be public when it is protected, so the sign will be accessible to everyone. But not necessarily you need to patent to create a successful company. I think at least it's mine.
So that's a nice story, because we are talking with our institution, and that's the other part of the problem. And the institution itself doesn't know how to handle this, or doesn't have any examples of these other type of stories. So
You want also me to be totally honest. I never thought Sequera was going to fly. We supported it, but my faith was -10, and I admit I was totally wrong.
okay.
Sometimes you've got to do that. I mean, you're not saying your institute is actively resistant. It just doesn't know what to do with...
Yeah, the first thing is like, okay, is there anything that you can protect? Can we make a patent of any of these things? No, this is all open software. We're working with developers in artificial intelligence. We're working with entomologists. We cannot close this to anybody, because everybody's helping to build the whole story. No?
Yeah.
And then if we cannot protect anything, how are we going to do this? I don't know. You help me. You are the ones that are on knowledge transfer office for to help.
I mean, if I can be very brief comment, the success of Sequera is that they developed Nextflow, and they managed to convince the scientists to use Nextflow, and then they created a very large community of users of Nextflow, and then Microsoft and other companies, they saw that this software was good and was developed by multiple people. And then these big companies, they prefer to have a professional company that co-develop with them, but at the same time a large community contributing. And it's the American model for many of these things.
Okay, 2 members of the front row we've not heard from, and then I want to open it up to absolutely everyone. So we'll start with Blanca Fuentes, University Hospital La Paz, and you've been involved in an intriguing project called Dulcinea, which involves dubbing TV for aphasia, but we don't necessarily... I'd like to talk about that, but maybe over lunch, maybe now, it would just be your thoughts on the whole entrepreneurial experience.
Thank you very much. Well, I have a different point of view. I'm clinician, and I feel that the innovation and knowledge transfer is even more challenging for clinicians because, as you know, we have a lot of patients to attend each day, so we make research in our free time. And I'm working in an institution with a research institute with a transference and innovation office, but my experience is that it was me who knocked the door of the innovation office. I have learned from Bruno and from Maria that the real way should be that the innovation office go and monitor your research and detect the point in you can go one step forward.
Right, and they might see something that some teams haven't seen in themselves, and therefore, if they know what to do. Okay, finally, it got mentioned first, but we've kind of left it till last to come to you. Pablo Menendez, who's been, as we said, is teamed up with Bruno.
Thanks. Yeah, I mainly agree with everything that has been said. I really like this mindset thing that Bruno brought up. I think going from the academia to a company requires a new mindset. On skills, like, we need to train people on patenting, licensing. For me, it's very important operations. I think the academia, we are not used to make a product, to do operations. You have to get something that is cost effective. And at the end, an investor is going to ask you to do a business case, right? You have to convince people that what you propose is going to be, you're going to get there. Something that we stress a lot in our spin-off company is that, when we all talk about R&D, is like in academia, we all do research. companies don't do research, at least spin-off companies. We should be doing development and innovation. So this is how can we improve the product, the scale up of the product, make it cost effective. So this requires obviously a new set of skills of our people, our students, postdocs, and so on. One thing I would like to say is that for us, I think it's very important to get to do this transition from science to, from basic science research to innovation with the support of your institution. I also think this is very beneficial for the lab. This is something that we should encourage people to do, because if you have a spin-off company coming from your lab, you can really benefit in terms of sharing people, getting more competitive grants that are shared between academics and spin-off companies. So it's always a legal and nice way to somehow fund your lab. Yeah, and that's it. And then I think that this is very important that we bring up those things, because I think when we all hear about our PhDs and postdocs to get frustrated because the academia, they keep complaining about stability in academia. But I think this opens up lots of new avenues for them in terms of, there are many jobs out there for patenting, for licensing. Venture capitals are looking for analysts and people who really understand science. So I think, just doing a bit of innovation is always very good. And I would like finally to get a comment, it's not an advice, it's just a comment for Frederic. I think there are some, I know two, but there are some venture capitals that are happy to put money on ideas to be done in the academia. They give you kind of an ERC for you to do the job, with the compromise that if it works, you will set up a company. So it's a way to explore those things. But obviously, they will do a business case and see whether this is fancy or not for them. But yeah, thanks.
He was nodding, which for the audience, you can't see it at the back, which is agreement. Just one thing about, we're clearly making points that sound reasonable, getting scientists to be better communicators, getting scientists to be more aware of entrepreneurial opportunities. How deliverable is this? Can we have every scientist being a new kind of scientist? And isn't there still room for the scientist who doesn't want to talk to anybody and isn't that interested in being a multimillionaire?
Yeah, I think so. One funny thing is happening at the CNIO is that because if you establish a culture and it's completely normal to have these technology transfer activities, to be able to think about your research from an innovation point of view, then it comes so natural that you don't have to tell anybody you have to do this. On the contrary, we had to tell some junior groups, please focus in, in your research and not be too worried about how you translate this, because after 8 years you have to leave and you have to find another. So yeah, I think it has to be in the culture. It has to be a way of living, and if that is in the institution, then it comes natural.
And is that just a matter of time? As you get more institutes that are geared towards this, as you have successes that people can see, they're not having to see somebody trying to buy these sculptures for $1 million, and they're not having to see somebody in America with a plane. They're seeing people in Portugal and Spain.
We don't have millionaires at the CNIO, but there are role models. So there are people that have done things, and these are role models.
Remember I mentioned that there was a famous British scientist at CRG whose name I don't want to remember, that said that it was impossible to make companies in Spain and why we are wasting our time. CRG is incorporating this month a new company called Alox, funded by Asavis, and the famous British scientist is the founder of this company. So I think culture is important, success, showing that you can do it and that this is beneficial, because we didn't say it, but of course I'm happy if I receive money. You're not doing this for money, you are doing this because it's a challenge. You create jobs for your people. Absolutely. You get funding for your lab. You do something new. It's a completely different universe that is completely different from the journals, etc. No? And you should see it as an adventure. It's something new, it's exciting, and at the end of the day, as I say, you get something for the people to cure someone. It's great, but meanwhile you have created jobs, and this spirit permeates, and then people slowly are convinced, and something that I think is very important. I hate the term basic and applied science. There is excellent science. And that's it. No basic, no applied, excellent science. And then, from this excellent science, there could be opportunities or not. Doesn't matter. If they are great, if not, it's excellent science. No?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to guess who the British scientist is, but I won't ask you till later. Now, I appreciate we've hogged it all in the front row, and here it's about time we opened it up to your comments. But I'm particularly keen on positivity here. How do we make things better rather than moans about why are things not better now? So who wants to go first from the vast sea of hands I see in front of me? You just want us to talk amongst ourselves? I mean, we're happy to do that. 5, 4, 3, 2... No, really, nobody really wants to do that.
I can add something. Can I just add something?
Of course, being on the panel, you can talk anytime.
About the institutional culture. I think it's important also not to go overboard and feel everyone at the Institute the pressure to translate their knowledge, right? So when you're saying, can we not have the pure, basic scientists? Of course. So I think the important thing, like Maria was saying, and now Luis also stressed, we all want in Research Institute excellent science. And that can be more mechanistic and more nature paper-like, or it can be more transferable into a product. But it's still excellent because it's only interesting for investors because it's new, no one else has gotten there, and can cure some lives, probably. So it's another way of interpreting excellent. And the problem is, usually if you're just into nature papers, you really frown upon and you look down on something that is saving a life. And if you're saving lives, you look down on something very mechanistic that you think you'll never get anywhere into saving a life. And this is the problem, is that we've polarized the way we are scientists and look at other people's science. So if we kind of avoid this dichotomy, the institution should avoid it, should avoid stressing too much one side or the other, and say, we treasure both. And so each of us can be more A or more B, or 50-50.
Maria, you wanted to join in?
I fully agree with that. I think you don't have to force anything. I think it has to be in the culture, it has to be natural, it has to be normal to do that. There must be role models, and then it comes naturally, I think.
Yeah, in a way, and I mentioned it before, and it's something that it has taken me some time now that I'm going to stop being director, and finally I managed to introduce, is that the evaluation of a scientist, you could be outstanding because you have published and discovered great things, but you can be also outstanding because you have created a company that has raised 20 million and 40 jobs. And both ways are outstanding for me. And so both should be recognized. And one or the other doesn't matter as long as what you are doing is great. And I think this is important, to introduce this culture in the Institute. And I think what you say, Bruno, is critical.
What about universities?
Not everyone should do companies, and you can also publish excellent papers.
We've talked a lot about institutes, we've talked a lot about individuals. A lot of research, probably the majority of research, I think, still goes on in universities. Can they be doing more in this? Ooh.
Well, maybe I'm going to be politically incorrect, but at least in Spain, if you look at there is this accreditation from the government called Severo Ochoa María de Maestu. The majority, I think, of the institutes and units are not in the university. No. And these are the top centers in Spain.
Yeah. Think that a technology transfer is costly. Many universities, they create this office that they have 3-4 people with salaries of 30,000-40,000 euros for a university with, I don't know, 2,000. I mean, it's more like a testimonial. They don't, it's not I don't think they don't want, it's that it's not in their structure. If you really want to have technology transfer, the technology transfer office should have a salary that should be commensurate to what it's doing. It should be a person that could phone and to a venture capital and they will know him or her. I cannot be a civil servant, and I think this is the main problem with universities in Spain.
And plus, the TTO needs to be very close to the researchers, right? So when I started LinkFact, the IP belonged to the university, which was a different institution, people I had never met, that had no idea who I was or my research was. So it was, I needed just them to sign forms that would allow me to do stuff, but they could not help me at all. So from then on, the University of Lisbon, which is the biggest in Portugal, with 18 different faculties, within which of them my institute was, you can see the hierarchy, they delegated the IP from the university to the schools. But even the schools, you know, they are more focused on teaching and everything. Their TTO departments are very small and detached from research. So we really need the institutes, whatever they are. They can be a university-bound institute, but really be professional about tech transfer and to have dedicated staff that is well paid, and usually these people, the top people, they cost money, and they need to be well paid to stay in an academic institution.
Because I mean, I can think of examples from the UK, particularly, in fact, from Scotland, where Edinburgh and Glasgow both run rival events to try and get funding in and attract angel investors to start-up ideas, and that has now become a central plank of the way that university gears itself. So I don't know to what extent you go into that territory. One thing I also wanted to ask about, which you mentioned very fleetingly, Luis Serrano, you talked about Triskel. And it didn't work. Do we need to have a different attitude to failure? Because in the tech sector, they say if you meet someone who's got a successful startup, they've almost certainly got one or two failures behind them, but we seem to be a little less forgiving in the biomedical sector.
But I like the American philosophy. In fact, if you have tried and the thing has failed, not because you did it wrong, but because the market, whatever, this is a plus, not a minus.
Yeah.
And I think trying is important, and having experience in technology transfer. For example, now when we set my two companies here in Barcelona, I believe that what the local venture capital appreciated is I understood the language. I knew the difference between the seed round. I know about that you dilute very early. I know that it is a song that immediately they will start drifting away. And if you have tried it before and failed, you have the experience to go for the next one. I don't think failure should be a problem. You learn. No?
Yeah. It's that word failure. It's unfortunately a very negative sounding word. Ronit, I think you've had your hand up for a bit. We'll get a microphone to you. Hang on, it's coming.
Thank you. So I was debating a bit if to share, because I feel a bit uncomfortable. I think it's human nature to complain, so we complain in Israel, but it's the startup nation, and now I feel quite privileged to be in a university that is ranked #1 in translation of startups and the number of patents. So just to share with you our experience, and you can take from it or not, it's your decision, but we did 3 main things in the university. The first is to take the Spark, if you're familiar, from Stanford, from Daria Rosin. So it started by bringing her and trying to open this Spark idea that is to nurture ideas coming from PIs or students, postdocs, anyone can apply with a new idea, and to have them meet with major people from the biotech and pharma industries. And at the beginning we said, no way, nobody will, and they come volunteering in Stanford. And we said, in Israel, nobody will volunteer to come and spend their time if they are CEOs of major biotech companies. And we reached a point after 5 years now that not only they come, they ask us when are the events, and there is a full house. Everybody comes because they know that they can be involved later, and they can monitor and be involved in very early time points in a startup to be formed. So this is one thing that we did. The second is an entrepreneurs center, so they can get the training that you were talking about. It's all now firm in their PhD program, or they get protected time, like for physician scientists, also for graduate students to come and do some of these courses. And the third one is Tau Ventures, Tau Tel Aviv University Ventures. So we got funding for very small seed money to give to those that really want to try and translate. Again, it can be between 100 to 500,000. It's not a deal breaker for a company, but it will help getting the preliminary data that usually we cannot fund from regular grants, only from La Caixa Impulse, for example, or ERC POC, that you can talk to Ernst & Young or any of these to get a development plan, business development, and other things that you cannot sponsor otherwise.
Yeah, it's what we'd say in English is worth a punt. You give it, you give them a try, and maybe 9 out of 10 of those things that you've put that 500 or 50,000 into don't get anywhere, but if 1 out of the 10 gets you somewhere, then it pays for everything else.
Or they learn from their mistakes. That's also important. I'm like the song for Microsoft from Yael Naim. I did all the possible mistakes.
Pablo, I think you had a hand up there as well. I'll get the microphone to you. Hold on. And then I might try the audience again. It's a brave thing to do in the last session, but I think, good.
No, I also would like to point out that, I know that it looks like a joke, and we have been discussing about, entrepreneur people becoming, they would like to become rich. I do believe that we all agree that everyone doing this business, we don't really care about, money, becoming rich. And it is quite important because, for instance, in our case, almost 20% of our seed money comes from foundations and for patient associations. So I think that if you set up a company and 20% of the seed money at the beginning it comes from foundations like Fundación Josep Carreras, a Spanish Association for Histiocytosis de Langerhans. So this is quite good, and this is something you should all explore, because I think that especially those of you working on rare diseases, I think patient associations can make a difference and can really help you to, to talk to investors and push things forward. And yeah, I think that's quite important. And in our case, let me give me 5 cents, but I think that we were able to establish a local, small spin-off company that has managed in 2 years to start a clinical trial at Sant Joan de Déu Hospital, and Jaume Mora is around, I guess. And I think we are very proud when we haven't been able to recruit patients yet, but this year we already got 6 patients that came from preclinical trial assessment, and they all come from abroad. So we had 2 from UK, 1 from Israel, 1 from Argentina, 1 from Germany, 1 from Switzerland. So I think that when you see these people from these countries coming to Spain or to Iberia country, this is what we should be telling people. And the director of the hospital and all these people, and they are so proud that we are, bringing people from, let's say, richer countries come to Spain for a potential trial for a patient that otherwise will go to palliative care. So I think we should be all proud that, social impact of our ideas and our spin-offs are very important for, for all the stakeholders.
Yeah, and that is a driver. Pride is a driver just as much as money. Mm-hmm. There was a question or point here, comment?
Yeah, just following up on Pablo's. I think it's just a general thought. I might be, just criticized for that, but I don't really care.
We quite like thought. It's good.
I'm saying because this is an Iberian sort of a meeting here, and the general presentations, they all mentioned, how potentially beneficial is to create a company or just to tech transfer. You call it tech transfer, but if that was this conference was in the U.S., this would, it would be felt like this is too mellow. What are you guys talking about? It's the drive for profit which drives to generate a company. Come on. We should be driven to make ourselves more profitable and just generate money out of this. I mean, come on, say it high loud. And the problem is that we have still in our talking about culture, right? Mediterranean culture, religious culture that we are all surrounded by. We are still feeling that it's a sin to make money out of our own work, right? So if you make a lot of money and you go on a plane, or your own plane, you're seen as you're a bad guy. Still, you're a bad science or you're a bad person. Come on, this is the drive that makes us to do something else and to go beyond and just attract new patients or generate. But this is for profit. What's wrong about this? Why are we so shy about this? And this is inner in our deep mind that we do not feel that this is the way to go. And talking about university or public health system, come on, they don't even allow you to even dream about it.
Are we shy or just culturally different? Do we need to sacrifice our culture and be more American? That seems quite scary to me.
I hide my 2 private jets before coming here.
It's amazing how the plane keeps coming up as a motif. Yes.
I don't think. I mean, let me
Maria
put it
right
that
by
way.
helicopter, right?
If I would, at least speaking personally, I would love to make millions. I don't have any discussion. But for me, this is not the primary drive. The primary drive is because it's exciting and it's interesting, and you can develop something that will allow your people to find a job, and you will cure someone. Now, if I make 10 million, I will not hide it. I will be really happy, and this will stimulate other people. But you cannot do this for money only, because doing technology transfer requires time, requires a lot of effort, requires learning a new language. You are doing it because it's interesting. Now, if we make money, we should not hide it, because at the end of the day, it's good. But I don't think it's my primary, at least my primary interest.
Maria, do you want to say something?
No, I was thinking that there is something true about what you say, and I don't know about Portugal, but in Spain at least, there is still this feeling that if you are making money and you are making companies out of a public institution, there is something wrong, right? That's why I say many times that I would love that someone working at the CNIO, not myself, someone working at the CNIO, is a millionaire out of the things that has done here. I think I say that frequently because I think there is something in our culture that still sort of doesn't look at that in a positive way.
But isn't there a philosophical difference between doing good things that make money versus doing things to make money?
Yeah, I would like to build on that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about doing things to make money. I'm saying that if you don't do anything, you will never make money.
Yeah, but again, I will sound like a diplomat because I'm always putting the two things together. But for instance, within this duo of myself and Daniel, when we started the company, we had very different motivations. Daniel told me that he saw the potential and he wanted to make the money. He said, I'm a postdoc, I don't want to be a group leader, I want to get this money that can foster my entrepreneurship career and I want to be rich. That was his motivation. Myself, and maybe because I did not quite see the potential of the technology, I just wanted to support him. And then when I realized that that could become a therapy, I wanted this romantic view of actually potentially saving a life, right? Now, when the money came, because when we were bought by Takeda, of course, we got money, I did not keep a secret that I got money, and people in the audience, they know I got money. They actually, I think they were very positive towards the money I got. I mean, there's nothing to hide. Because but they saw me during 10 years fighting to make something happen, and then the money was the reward for this. It was never my motivation, but if it had been, like for Daniel, I also don't think there would be a problem for that. Yeah. And actually all the lab members are very, very kind of proud of Daniel and his motivation to make money, which comes with maybe saving a life. So I think these are two things that converge ideally.
Yeah. I love the fact that Daniel and planes have had so many name checks over
exactly.
Now we're nearly out of time, and I'd like it if anybody's got any last ideas they think might help. Anything else you think that could make a positive difference? I'm looking once again across the vast field of hands in our audience. Okay, well, I'll go back to the panel then in that case. Ronit made the point about what happened in 5 years, quite a major cultural shift. Can we get to that point? Because both you, Bruno, and Luis have said something about UK versus Portugal and Spain. Can we get to that point where a good idea, the same good idea, would stand as much chance of attracting funding and everything else here as it would do in the UK? And how do we get closer to that?
I mean, at Lisbon I have, and I say I was in Germany for 20 years, now I have been in Barcelona for 15. And also, I'm in the scientific advisory board of the IGC in Portugal, so I know also a little bit. And I think I have seen a major change in Spain and Portugal, no? I mean, clearly we are behind the UK, but there has been a major shift. If you look at the number of, at least in Barcelona and Madrid, the number of startups or spin-offs in the last 5-6 years, and Bruno alluded in the IMM.
And don't forget the UK have done a number of things to make themselves easier to catch up with in recent years.
Yeah, well, we will not enter into it, but it's incredible. The last 6-7 years, the whole field has bloomed. There are a lot of now venture capital companies in Spain. Portugal, in this respect, I think, is lagging behind. So I think this is going well. We have still a major gap. Universities are one, and Maria alluded it, because a country cannot survive on CNIO, CRG, IRB, and 4 institutes more. Universities need also to be like Cambridge or Oxford. Yeah. And the big thing that we need to develop now in Spain is going from a seed round of 6, 8, 10 million to Series A of 20, 30, and to pharma company being attracted and not taking the company out of Portugal and out of Spain, but keeping them here. No, this is for me the challenge in the next 5 years. Move from the startup to really start having companies type gene and tech, which I'm dreaming, but this kind of thing, no, in the country.
Because that changes the mindset, rather than big. We get big, we get out of here.
This will make the final revolution.
Yeah.
Maria?
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's what we need. That's the formula.
Okay. That seems like as good a point as any to stop at, since it's almost exactly on time. So we can't go on much longer because lunch is looming, and after lunch we've got buses to catch, which are very, very important. So it's not very innovative, I know, but can we please give a huge hand to our 3 panellists, Bruno Silva-Santos, María A, Blasco, Luis Serrano. Also, our front row contributors as well, and everybody else who joined in, which means you.
Anyway,
so as we get everyone off stage, if I can ask you to gently leave the stage, that just leaves us with the non-trivial task of how to sum up all that we've heard and seen and agreed on and argued over the last day and a bit. I am wisely not going to try, but I'll tell you who is. The same person who kicked everything off under 24 hours ago. Please welcome back La Caixa's Director of Relations with Research and Health Institutions, Ignacio Lopez Nacho, putting on his jacket.
Well, thank you very much, Quentin. I won't try to summarize everything up. It would be impossible, but I would like to thank very much the three speakers and especially María Blasco, who's leaving now. So thank you very much for having made the effort. I think just to say thank you and goodbye. So we've seen amazing things here. I would say the magic of CaixaResearch did its work again. We are very happy to have seen the amazing work that you have been doing during the last 4 years. I think, and we have been seeing, we have a very difficult work because somehow we have been seeing that we demand and request the researchers such amazing things. It seems that you should be like heroes in what you do. So you are, we expect that you do amazing research, so excellent science, but as well that transfer your results, make companies innovate, do tech transfer, do science communication, take care of the ethics, and we are aware, do science communication. We're very much aware of that. And you know that, and you have very limited resources, even from your research institution. Some of them have more resources than others, but not all of them. And as Luis was saying before, universities should do the change as well. So there are a lack of resources in the centers, but as well from the funding agencies. And we really believe from La Caixa Foundation that we have the responsibility of two things, basically. One, first, to be very, very fair in how we select the projects that we can sustain, we can help with, and we have got many ideas in this regard, but as well on how can we support you. And we know that not all of you want to do a company, not all of you want to do amazing science communication, not all of you want to educate the children that you have around. But some of you want, some of you have the motivation to do so. So I believe that and we have been discussing that among the team very much during the last year. So how do we find those researchers that really want to be innovators, those who really want to have a project that involves the community in doing something interesting and so on and so forth. And I believe that we got many ideas in this regard, and I believe it's not on only myself, but on behalf of the team that I would like to thank you, the Caixa researchers of 2019, because of the ideas that you gave us. So first, applause for you. Thank you very much. Second, I would say that, sorry, I'm trying to read here. I was taking notes. That this is not the end of the conference. For me, and I believe for us, this is the beginning of a long-standing relationship with you from La Caixa Foundation. So please believe that you are now part of the CaixaResearch network. We're very happy and very proud that we are starting the travel from here. Then I would like to thank the health and research team of La Caixa Foundation. This wouldn't have been possible without them, especially the ideas behind every session have been carried out by Jordi in the case of this last innovation session. Inés, sorry, I'm not going to say the matching, but Inés, Carla, Monica, and Sonia, they have been taking care of the panel, so thank you very much to them as well. Please, applause. Jorge, I believe, didn't participate, and Montse in those panels, but they are very welcome, and they have been participating in the overall thinking. Then Quentin, of course, thank you very much. This is the second year. CaixaResearch wouldn't be CaixaResearch without you, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the moderators, Michaela and Elena, that helped us as well. And finally, a very, 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 very special thing, I would say, to the ones that made this happen in terms of logistics. So Natalia and Carla, Judith, and especially Eva, who sacrificed her birthday yesterday to make things happen. So thank you and happy birthday. And that would be it. Thank you for making the magic of Cap Roche, and hope to see you very soon again. Thank you very much.